I'm Heather Vale for Performance Marketing Insider, and today we have a very special roundtable discussion with experts from the pay-per-call industry. I'm going to introduce our panelists one by one so you can get to know who they are, starting with Mike Williams, who is the network manager for RingPartner. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And we've
Thanks.
also got Carlton Van Putten, who's the VP of Marketing for LogMyCalls. Hi, Carlton.
How's it going?
Good. And we have Leonidas Kaplan, who's the owner of Premium23.com.
Buenos dias.
Hi. And finally, we've got Drew Thorne-Thomsen, the Senior VP of Business Development for Invoca. Hi, Drew.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Sure.
So I'm going to get you guys to all introduce yourselves a little bit more. Tell us what your company does and where exactly you fit in with the pay-per-call industry. So, Mike, let's start with you.
Sure. RingPartner is a pay-per-call performance marketing network. So we work with buyers and sellers of call leads in a number of different verticals across a number of different campaigns. And our job is just to ensure that everybody along the chain of the delivery of calls is happy with the quality and the volume of the calls that come in. So we work very closely with our publishers and very closely with our advertisers to ensure that everybody can succeed and profit with pay-per-call marketing.
Cool. All right. And Carlton, what exactly does LogMyCalls do?
LogMyCalls is a call marketing platform similar to Invoca and other call tracking applications. Our claim to fame, though, is that we really actually are about the data inside the call. So whereas most call tracking companies are focused on some basic call details, we really help our customers to take a deep dive into what happens during those conversations and to get more data and more information out of that to help improve their call marketing campaigns.
Okay, so Drew from Invoca, tell us what Invoca does.
Yeah, so we're a call automation platform. We work closely with a lot of pay-per-call networks and performance-based networks where we help them and empower them to create phone-based campaigns to automate essentially their relationships with their clients. Essentially, we provide all the tools in a self-serve and API instance.
Okay, and Leo, you're from Premium23.com. What exactly do you do?
So Premium23.com is basically for internet marketers on the publishing side that want to learn how to develop a business that allows them to live a life of freedom, fun, and adventure using pay-per-call marketing.
Okay, so basically you're an information provider, like you're publishing content for them to learn from?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So there's similarities between LogMyCalls and Invoca. Carlton and Drew, can you kind of explain to us what the similarities and differences are between your two platforms?
Drew, you want to go first?
I can, sure. You know, we started our business in the agency/network business, where we were leading with our technology solutions to empower leading networks like Google Affiliate Network at the time, LinkShare, and Commission Junction, as well as others. So our roots really go back into performance-based marketing. So I think a lot of the core functionality that we've built is specific and custom built for performance-based networks, agencies, publishers, and advertisers. So really, I think that's a big differentiator for us, kind of as it relates to call performance marketing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And in fact, we've really stayed completely clear of the network part of the business. We actually work with enterprises, small businesses, and others, those internal marketing organizations that are looking to manage and drive their call campaigns, not necessarily through a pay-per-call network, but are driving significant amounts of lead volume to phone calls to either multiple locations or to call centers in order to be able to drive their marketing leads.
Cool. Okay. So I'm going to ask each of you to give your opinion. Why do you think pay-per-call is so popular right now? And let's start with Leo.
Due to the market basically going into the mobile phone direction, every single person is going to have a mobile phone within a couple of years, and in particular, everybody's making phone calls. And as well on the publisher side, everybody wants a piece of that money. So the advertising is generating, money with it, and the consumers are generating traffic with it. So it's like a collaborative.
Okay. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely a big driver of pay-per-call growth right now is mobile search more specifically, but I think just the fact that everyone has a pretty powerful phone in their hand and is able to search and do various things on their phone, and then to be able to directly connect to advertisers who have the services and goods that they want to purchase, it just makes it that much more seamless and easy. So I think it's just growing in popularity, and as that mobile phone adoption continues to grow, I think the awareness of pay-per-call grows, and then the awareness on the advertiser side grows as well, and they are the ones who are really keen on this stuff, because it is so good for them to be able to get a live customer on the phone and be able to talk to them. So as advertisers learn more about this being possible, I think you'll just see more and more adoption on the advertiser side. Right now, I think it's largely growing on the publisher side, because publishers are becoming aware of the opportunity. So once those two kind of meet up, I think it'll just explode from there, and it's already grown significantly even in the last year. So I expect continued growth there as mobile phone adoption grows, and just the awareness of it. I see more and more pay-per-call providers at the show, people who are interested in this stuff. So I see the growth, and I think it will just continue.
Okay, Carlton?
Hey, Mike, I wanted to add to that. I think that the fundamental driver for all of this, for the growth of pay-per-call and the growth of call marketing in general, is just really the fact that the person making a phone call is probably one of your most in-market customers you could ever possibly have.
Right.
They have a sense of urgency. They are eager to buy. They're searching for your product right at that very time. And it's a pretty significant investment for somebody to pick up the phone and have a conversation and interact with somebody. Mm-hmm. And that really is what's fundamentally, I think, driving the economics of this. The economics of pay-per-call are gonna be very attractive, and it's going to grow. But at the very heart of it is that these are probably the best customers a business could ever ask for, or the best prospects a business could ever ask for.
Yeah.
And that's really the fundamental driver, I think, for this growth in pay-per-call.
Yeah, okay. And Drew, what are your thoughts?
I agree with everybody. I mean, I think it does start with the customer first, certainly. They're spending a lot of time on mobile devices, and certainly an option that they have is to place an inbound call. Certainly those advertisers that are in the chain need analytics and attribution. They need those signals of what's going on with those inbound calls. They need to be integrated with all of their marketing. And certainly, publishers, if they're in the middle of the transaction between the consumer and the brand, certainly they need the attribution and not the leakage, which is where I think a lot of the players are taking advantage of that now, where a lot of times over the last 10 years, folks haven't been able to capture the attribution. There's been leakage, and so publishers really have been sort of cut out of the loop. But now that pay-per-call and call analytics and call attribution is available, and it's easy to integrate inside of your marketing, publishers are back in the mix, and now they can not only make additional incremental money, but they can go out and do new things like mobile search, et cetera. So all of those, I think, are what's driving it. And
okay. So I hear what you guys are all saying about people having mobile devices and wanting to connect with people. But we did go through a time recently, the past few years, when everyone had mobile devices and didn't necessarily want to use them to make phone calls, because mobile devices are capable of email, they're capable of chat, they're capable of doing search and accessing a website. So where do you feel the tipping point was when people decided, hey, I actually want to go old school now. I want to go back to the basics and actually make a call and talk to someone. When did that happen, and why?
Can I start with that?
Yeah, go for it.
I think there's a fundamental ease of use question here with mobile devices. So mobile devices are growing, so phone calls are growing. That's a direct relationship, right? The tipping point actually came when I think marketers, performance marketers and other marketers, really were using their initial tactics, which could be lead form fills and other types of interactions on a screen that really just proved to not be the most efficient way to connect with people. I really just think it fundamentally is a usability thing. I believe we learned ultimately that there are only a couple of things that are easy to do on a phone, which is, when you're advertising, that's to, give somebody directions and to make a phone call, or two of those key elements. So I actually think that the device, the form factor of the device, is what has made this tipping point happen. And we just actually happen to learn and catch up with how users really just naturally wanted to use their devices. I don't know what the other guys think about that, but that's my opinion on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with that as well. I think also maybe some of the publishers encouraging people to actually generate calls. I know it's something that Leonidas does in some of his webinars, is actually tells people to call within the call to action, and it just makes sense. So that encouragement of getting them to pick up the phone may help as well. To pinpoint the time when this occurred, I think is really tough, but I think that it's kind of happening now. But I definitely think that we, like here internally, we felt that a little disconnected to our clients by just using phone or the email and Skype. And so we've actually gone back to a culture of creating calls, and the connection that you get with people is so much stronger when you actually speak with them. And I think that people are getting back to that. I think it's only in human nature to actually want to interact with people in a live format, right? Going back and forth by email or Skype is not always the best form of communication. So I think that there's an inherent desire for people to want to talk to people. And then I think publishers may be pushing that over with a little bit of a true call to action, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting point, the actual call to action, Mike. I mean, that has changed. There's a lot of places, a lot of websites you go to today where it is not an option still, mobile device or desktop. People don't allow you to call, and you really ask these marketers why they don't offer that, and it turns out it's hard for them, and they don't have attribution against it.
Right.
And so they're trained essentially to not provide phone numbers. We walk into agencies all the time and clients all the time, and we ask them why they're not doing it, and they say, "Do people still call? Are you forcing them to make a phone call?"
Yeah.
And,
and I think if they can get tracked, they will do it, right? If they can get credit for it.
Yeah, and just making your phone number available certainly generates more inbound calls. And certainly people want the choice. And if they want to transact through a shopping cart or in store, that's fine. But certainly if they're busy and they're on multiple devices and they don't have time, they don't want to fill out a form, they don't want to be called later. I mean, raise your hand if you want to be contacted by filling out a form. I mean, no one's going to raise their hand.
Right.
So people want to stay anonymous, and they want to make a phone call to stay anonymous.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So Leo, how has this affected your marketing when you actually ask your viewers and your audience to call?
Well, technically, no one's really asking them to call. We're encouraging them to call, but a lot of how I see it is it has to do with the technology. AdWords is giving you the opportunity in the last 3 years or 4 years to give you the click to call. Before that, we didn't have that. Bing Ads also has that option now too for click to call. Before we didn't have that. Now we also have very complex, very beneficial tools like Ring Revenue or Invoca that allow from the publisher side to track all of this information. So like it's a lot of it has to do with technology meshing with advertisers and as well as the consumers. So the advertisers are basically pushing this technology towards the consumer. So therefore, I think like the tipping point is when big money gets involved in order to generate profits on an easier basis.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that, because there's obviously we can dial a phone number into the phone when you see it on a website or whatever. There's also click to call, as Leo mentioned, where you just click it and it's a direct connect. So in your experience, does anyone have any stats or any kind of case studies on which works better as far as conversions and getting people to make that call? Maybe Mike, have you done anything with that?
We haven't actually done too much with that as far as like hard statistics or having case studies, but we definitely see a difference in allowing people to click to call versus actually asking them to pick up the phone. And I think that's another reason for the growth, is that this is now seamlessly integrated into the user experience where they can actually just click and connect to the call rather than it's just enough of a barrier to ask someone to pick up their phone that they don't do it, or they do it a lot less than they do when you put it right there in their hands and just make it easy. So I think that the ease of use definitely helps encourage users to make that call.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, Google's put out some great info. I mean, we certainly have case studies. I can talk about those, but I think the most notable one is with Google with their ad extensions. If you're adding a phone call element to your Google AdWords campaign for mobile, the click-through rate increases by 15%. I think they say 5 to 15%. That's significant. So seriously, something to look at. It's enabled through technologies. Google's made it available. Advertisers and agencies and publishers and folks that are in the mix are putting out phone numbers and getting higher click-through rates just by adding a phone number in terms of response rates. So certainly that's.
Are you saying that's 5 to 15% increase over not having a phone number in the ad at all?
That's right. Just
Okay.
Just including a phone number in your mobile search ad on Google is going to get you more traffic.
Well, the interesting thing about that, and that kind of behavioral information has always been available. And any survey you do around customer confidence or anything, if you've got a phone number on your website, you're going to get more confidence from a customer. If you're unable to be contacted by phone, it deteriorates the confidence a customer or a consumer might have for interacting with you as a business. That has always been the case, and now I think that the data that you're showing there, Drew, is just continuing to support that psychological element, right, which is customer confidence, right?
Also, Google released a statement a few months back saying that if you have an ad extension in your ad, it actually increases your quality score by a fraction or whatever, but it also, generally speaking, makes your ads cheaper, and therefore you can save money as well by having the click-to-call extension in your ad.
Yeah, good point.
Interesting. Okay. So does this work well across the board, or are there certain verticals that it works well in and certain verticals that it completely fails in? Any thoughts, Drew?
Yeah, sure. So I think everyone would agree that the traditional lead gen verticals, EDU, financial services, home services, insurance, etc., those are fantastic verticals that drive tons and tons of call volume. Anything where it's a considered purchase, it's customized, the transaction is customizable. I need this for this package. Hey, I'm going on a cruise. I don't want to get it wrong. Anything that has high value, where folks traditionally need to talk to someone that's consultative, certainly those are the folks that are looking to make a phone call. If you're going to buy 2 big pens or a book from Amazon with great reviews, you're likely going to shop through the shopping cart. It's very easy, but if you're going to configure something, a reservation for a restaurant with 20 guests, you want to get it right. If that gets wrong, you got a problem. If you're configuring your cruise that you do once every 5 years, the price of getting that wrong for your family or for you is pretty high. So those are the types of campaigns that generally calls are super important, and marketers, publishers, and consumers, all want to engage to the phone.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that, the verticals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that almost every vertical could potentially be a category for pay-per-call. Anybody that wants calls could potentially, get involved in this stuff. I think where we see it fall down sometimes is when the advertisers are unprepared for it. So they need to be prepared for how they're going to handle these calls. Since they pay out on a duration, you want to make sure that you're asking the most pertinent questions to qualify the caller right away. And so I don't think it works across the board for everybody, but not because of the vertical, but more because the advertiser wasn't prepared or wasn't prepped for it. So I would like to say that it's open to anybody that wants calls could potentially work within the pay-per-call marketing industry.
Okay. Are there any verticals that you feel in particular are untapped and really should be using more pay-per-call?
Oh, so many. I think that if you just drive around town or you walk downtown somewhere, right, you can see so many businesses that could accept calls. I mean, Drew mentioned restaurants, right, making a reservation. I mean, they can accept calls, and this localized marketing, targeting smaller businesses. If we could get those businesses together, to receive some calls, it could be really huge. So I think it's awareness beyond the typical lead gen like EDU and insurance and those guys. So we're excited about the potential to really reach out to some of those smaller businesses and group them together and send calls to them and provide them with business. So.
Well, Mike, that's true, and it's interesting that there is always this kind of untapped opportunity in the SMB and the small business market and the very small business. The level of sophistication required for that is different, and it's always been problematic, which is why I think companies like Reach Local and eLocal Listings and those kinds of guys are coming into their own, is because they're trying to manage these things on behalf of those small businesses, because frankly the small businesses don't have the savvy to do something like that, even though they value it greatly. It's really a challenge for them to tap for them to tap a network like yours.
Yeah, and I think that Google does a fairly good job of trying to reach out to those smaller businesses, coffee shops, and that. But they don't have an AdWords specialist. So I think there's something for those guys to make it a little easier. Just buy the calls straight up and make it.
But I still think what Drew said is the truest litmus test for this, which is how expensive is that sale and how complex is that sale,
right?
I mean, that's people aren't going to really care about pay-per-call if they're ordering a pizza, but people are going to care about it if they're ordering tires or making a vacation decision or doing these other things. So I think businesses, there are some untapped businesses, significantly untapped businesses, but I think you got to draw the line at kind of the value of the sale as to whether people need to or would make the investment into doing something like what we're all attempting to do, which is to kind of raise the bar on this in this call marketing.
And look, marketers, they want new customers, and if they can get them, they'll take them in any channel that makes sense. And certainly, if their customers will call to make that initial sale, they should absolutely test it. To what Mike's saying, at a minimum. I think that's the opportunity, is just dip your feet in it. It may not be for you, but you got to test it. And who knows? It may not work for you. And working with someone like Mike is a great place to start. So that would be my recommendation. If you're listening to this and you didn't mention your vertical, it doesn't mean you're out. It just means you should probably test it. If you're looking for new customers, it's a great tactic or channel to look at. And it's growing like crazy, and mobile is driving a lot of it.
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about the small businesses, such as the restaurants and the coffee shops, as you guys were mentioning, I think for the business owner, there might be a bit of a stumbling block, because they're used to perhaps putting an ad in the yellow pages, which I don't know how many businesses actually do that anymore. And they're used to maybe making some flyers or coupons to be distributed through direct mail or doing a Groupon or something. But I don't think that a lot of restaurant and coffee shop owners are really thinking that they should pay for people to call them. They're used to their phone number just being out there and people calling them for free. So if you were working with a small business like that and trying to tell them about the benefits of pay-per-call, how would you convince them that this is a good way to spend their money?
I think it's on the pay-for-performance model, right? They're not going to pay unless they get a customer. They could list their ad in a Yellow Pages or a newspaper and receive nothing for it. With this sort of stuff, for us, is you pay for the calls that you receive, and hopefully you're only going to pay for calls that last a certain duration. And maybe a restaurant or coffee shop isn't the best example, but I think that's the easiest way to sell it to them, is just to say, hey, you don't have to pay for anything unless you get a qualified call or a somewhat qualified call.
Yeah, and if we just use the restaurant one, it's probably not the best example, but I'll give you a couple cases where every restaurant, I live here in Santa Barbara, they'll take a big group of people, right? If I'm going to go to dinner with Mike, we probably don't need to talk to anybody, but if we're going to bring our teams together and have a team dinner with 25 people, that's different. And if I could drive inbound phone calls for a local business for a party of 25, I think they'd be pretty happy with that, and they'd pay a lot of money for it, and they'd value that very high.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. So let's talk about some strategies for advertisers to increase their ROI when they start advertising with pay-per-call. who wants to, maybe Mike, do you have any suggestions for advertisers?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like I said, the first thing that we want them to do when they pick up that phone is ask the most pertinent questions that qualify the caller, because they need to know within that first minute to 3 minutes whether this is going to be a good call or not, and that can be really challenging. But there's a few key questions you can ask. You can ask things like, do you have a credit card if it's going to require a credit card purchase? Or, ask something like, do you own a car if you're looking for auto insurance, right? And you can just kind of get to those pointed questions right away. And I think that's the key thing for advertisers to know when they first start in this, is that you are paying for a call that lasts a certain duration, so you have a few minutes to ask the best qualifying questions in the first period, in the first sort of start of that call. And the other thing we can do is put an IVR in front of that to qualify them before we connect them. But the other thing that advertisers really need to understand is that publishers are driving these calls, and publishers need to get paid. So we need somebody to pick up the phone. Some advertisers assume that they can just pay for the calls, and if they don't pick them up, oh well. But that's not going to go well with the publishers, because they need someone on the end of that call to pick it up so that it can last a duration. So there's definitely some coaching, and we do some onboarding with our advertisers before we get them started. Coach them through some of that process. But I think that's sort of the number one key thing, is just, be ready to pick up the calls, be ready to qualify the caller as soon as you can.
Okay. Anything to add, Drew, Carlton?
Yeah, this actually kind of tees up a whole discussion about, I think we talked about it in a couple of answers here, about the actual advertisers being ready for this channel. And a big part of what we do at LogMyCalls is what we call conversation analytics. So, we actually get these call recordings that become a part of our system, and we're able to extract information about what happened on this phone call. The fascinating thing about this is that so we just put out an infographic that's on our blog actually just a couple days ago, and we track based on our conversation analytics across all of our customers, how many of the calls that are coming into them are sales inquiries or interest in their product, and then of those sales inquiries, how many times do they blow it? How many times do they actually miss an opportunity? And it's fascinating to watch this statistic. And I don't want to bother to share my screen because I don't want to drop off or have any technical difficulties. But almost half of the calls that come into a business through this channel, through the phone in general, not just through this pay-per call channel. Through the pay-per call channel, it's 100% sales inquiries for the most part. But of all of their calls, about half of them are sales inquiries. And of those sales inquiries, they miss the opportunity to make the sale or convert the customer on that phone call 56% of the time.
Wow.
So there's a lot of lost and missed opportunity. There's a lot of money wasted in that last mile. So here we all are doing our job, driving phone calls. We have great networks. We have publishers eager to do this. And then at the end of the road, they still aren't converting these customers because fundamentally, either the person on the phone doesn't have the skills, or they haven't been trained, or they aren't aware of the fact that these are real live opportunities that are costing them a significant amount of money to drive it. And so I think that last mile and getting insight into that last mile and fixing that last mile is going to be absolutely critical to improving the marketing ROI for this channel.
Okay. Drew, what do you think?
And I agree. I think we're trying to solve initially problems for marketers. So I think what we try to do is put ourselves in the marketing position and try to understand what the goals of marketers are. It's hard to go into sales and try to solve all those problems too from our position. I don't disagree that sales can always improve their performance, but generally it's not marketing's job to teach the salespeople how to sell for the most part. It's marketing's job to drive qualified opportunities to sales. And so I think what Mike's saying is, they need to be prepared because mostly we're dealing with marketers here. And so certainly there is a crossover into sales, but it's definitely a blurry line of how far we can go in there. And I think over time, sales and marketing, as it relates to phone calls, have to get a little bit more aligned. I think think that's the message. But right now it is somewhat disconnected, specifically on B2C marketing. B2B, we see it a little bit more closely aligned. Those marketing teams and sales teams sit very close. But for now, it's empowering the marketer, getting them started, getting them testing, making them understand the value of those calls, understanding that they need staff. They need to listen to the calls for sure. They need to qualify those calls. They need to make sure they understand all the qualifiers in advance. So I think all good points.
Okay, cool. Leonidas, I know that you typically deal with publishers, and we'll talk about tips for publishers in a minute, but do you have anything to add as far as tips for advertisers to increase ROI?
Implement an IVR. Make sure you're filtering that traffic. Make sure you're like basically molding it as part of your sales process. So ask the relevant questions, for example, for insurance, whether they're in the right zip codes, whether they have a certain amount of income, whether, whatever the relevant questions are for your business. Make sure you're filtering them through your IVR, and then send them off to your sales team.
Okay, cool. So as Mike mentioned, it's the publishers that are driving the call. And let's talk about how publishers can increase their income, because obviously that's what they're in this for. So Leonidas, we're going to start with you. What are your strategies for publishers to make the most out of this opportunity?
One of my favorite strategies actually is to find a fairly inexpensive but broad traffic source, and then of course use that IVR filter to funnel the traffic, like clean it up, and then basically provide quality traffic to the advertiser, so that you can, for your benefit and for the advertiser, you have a long-running campaign. Because a lot of the times what happens is you have the advertiser throws up a campaign and it only lasts about maybe a few weeks to a month or two, and then they have to take it down because on the advertiser's end they couldn't monetize it properly. So basically, if you can somehow collaborate with your affiliate manager or even the advertiser directly and clean up your traffic, and then basically provide them the cleanest form of revenue for them, then basically you have a long-standing campaign with a lot of money that's going to be coming in.
Okay. Mike, what are your tips for the publishers?
Yeah, definitely on the lines of what Leonidas is saying there. I mean, the better quality calls that you can send through, even if it's less, the more leverage the publishers have to work with their distribution manager to increase their payout and just create demand for their calls versus other publishers. And the advertisers, once they're happy with the calls, they just want more. But one of the things, I mean, there's several strategies you can do within Google, but I think one of the things that advertisers or publishers may miss out on is the fact that they can control those calls and, like Leonidas said, filter, but they can also increase revenue streams by adding different options within the IVR. So a good example of that would be advertising for payday loans. You can send all your payday loan calls to a payday loan provider, but then if the caller is not qualified for that loan, they can also go to potentially a payday relief, or if they're not qualified for either, they could go to something else. So there's an option for publishers to create multiple options from one click and better monetize their traffic. So if you're advertising for the loan, don't forget that there may be people that come through that just may not qualify, and so instead of hanging up or dismissing that traffic, you can actually monetize it and make more from a single click. So there are options, and we do use the Invoca platform, and there's a really cool feature in there that all publishers have access to. We just need to turn it on, which is the call promotions option, and they can actually create their own IVR, or we can move some of the levers and create custom IVR for publishers on our side. But I think that's an opportunity that publishers may be missing out on, or some of the traditional affiliate marketers may not be aware of that opportunity to create multiple revenue streams from a single click or caller. So.
Okay. So, Drew, since he mentioned that he's using your platform, what do you have to add to this?
I mean, I think the publishers have lots of opportunities now, and we're certainly seeing, and everyone's seeing, the growth in mobile certainly fueling this opportunity to drive inbound calls and certainly monetize them. Google certainly is a massive driver through search. Everyone knows that, there's no secret there. It will be very interesting to see what publishers find in terms of inventory to monetize. But certainly seeing Facebook's revenue yesterday, and it's all mobile. Very curious to see how pay-per-call and performance marketers play, and certainly social media and Facebook specifically. But certainly all of the more traditional forms of advertising are working really well for publishers too. So desktop search is still around. It's declining over time compared to mobile, but lots of great quality inbound calls. Every tactic of marketing we see calls through. And you mentioned yellow page advertising, but believe it or not, that still generates a ton of phone calls, and they're high quality. And there's 500,000 businesses at least that are still doing that. So there's lots of tactics, traditional, non-traditional, desktop, mobile, tablet, etc. So I think it certainly starts there with what's available inventory-wise and capturing a very, very wide net. And if you are going into mobile, you're going to have unqualified callers. It's very easy to make a phone call. People are multitasking. And so you do need to use advanced technologies and call routing things, basically, and you got to get those in place. And you've got to be an expert. Otherwise, you're going to end up sending low-quality calls to your clients or to your networks. And as a result, it's going to not be a win for you long term. So it is critical to cast a wide net, to filter down as much as possible, use all the technologies that are available to you on the front end of these calls before you pass in a call to a buyer, essentially.
Okay. Carlton, what are your tips for publishers?
Well, so we aren't really kind of publisher affiliate oriented. I've done affiliate marketing, and I have affiliate marketing programs and things like that. And I'm listening to all these tips. I think they're all extremely useful. What Leonidas is talking about in terms of taking responsibility for delivering quality calls to the advertisers is really a win-win situation for everybody. And that's no different than any other type of affiliate marketing, whether it's lead gen forms or otherwise. So I don't have any additional tips. These guys are the pros. These guys are the experts in what they're doing.
Okay, awesome. So speaking of lead gen, I mean, it's one thing for an advertiser or a business owner to take a phone call from a customer or a potential customer, but what kind of technology is there to turn these phone calls into leads so that a business can actually be creating leads from these calls? Anyone?
I can take a stab at it. So I think when you're creating a campaign, if you're a marketer, publisher, advertiser, anyone in the mix here, you have to be able to create very specific campaigns initially, and you need technologies and partners to basically build all this stuff. And certainly, configuring IVRs and basically making sure that every consumer doesn't have the same journey. If all of us click on the same pay-per-call ad, for example, we shouldn't have the same experience every single time, right? We should be smart enough to know, and there's technologies out there that can help you understand how you should route each call based on cookies, parameters and URLs, past performance, past history, have they called in before, what location are they calling in from, using all the information that you have at the time of that click to call or click in front of the call, to be programmatically smart to make sure that the consumer experience is right for the consumer and certainly for the brand. I don't know how in-depth we want to get into technologies, but there are some real-time things that can be done through multiple technologies. And again, I think a lot of it comes to having, beyond technology, you got to work with people that actually have a clue of how this stuff actually works and making sure that measuring and delivering these calls is effective.
Okay. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that it is kind of up to the advertisers to make sure that they're not just creating a database of static names, but realize that this is these are leads, these are people in there, and figuring out how to deal with those leads effectively, and making sure that at the time of the call they've made the qualification and then stored them correctly for potential future reference. One of the things that we've kind of started to see a little bit more of is that people want multiple options, so they can become a form lead from a mobile page or potentially phone. So people, publishers need to keep that in mind, that people still do want to submit a form. Different people like different types of media to interact with, right? So they may still want to complete that form. So you need to give multiple options for publishers to become either a mobile lead or call and become a lead through the call. So I think that's another way that publishers can add to their existing traffic. If they're already generating, say, education leads through mobile forms or through desktop forms, if they could put a phone number on that page as well, that may increase the amount of revenue they can generate, because maybe someone landed on that page and was looking for the phone number but didn't previously have that option. So hopefully that can just increase the profitability of their campaigns. So that's something that we've kind of noted recently, that publishers would like the option to be able to generate a form lead as well as a call lead.
I think one of the important next things that we've got to do as platform providers and as networks, et cetera, is to so the first problem we solved was attribution, right? And how do I attribute my phone call to my marketing campaign? And I think everybody's kind of done a good job of getting that together. The next step on this thing, though, is to now tie this into a holistic view of the customer's interaction with your company. So you've got to get this stuff tied into CRMs. You've got to get this stuff tied into marketing automation platforms and things like that that can allow you to, beyond that one call, because generally in a lead situation, you've got multiple touches with the customer before a purchase gets made or before that conversion really happens. That, to me, is the definition of lead generation. And the call platform is just one element. The call interaction is just one element of that. So I think the next problem we've got to solve is, how do we get this data well integrated into all their activities from online, all their interactions with other people through CRMs, email marketing campaigns, all this sort of stuff. The next challenge is to get our data integrated with other data points about that customer, and really provide some value and insight so that marketers can nurture leads, move them through the funnel, ultimately convert them into customers.
Okay. Leo, do you have any thoughts on lead gen?
In regards to the technology, Drew and Carlton have said it best. So.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about where you guys think this is all going. I mean, it's a relatively young industry, as we've discussed, and obviously there's a lot of untapped potential. I mean, Mike referenced that early on. So in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, where do you see pay-per-call marketing going?
Come on, Mike. It's all you.
I was going to defer to you. You guys have all the stats. So, but
I'm happy to comment, but I'll give you a shot.
Okay. I think in the short term, I think we kind of talked about the social integration. I think Facebook's traffic is largely mobile now, and they don't yet have click-to-call that I've seen. So there's a real opportunity there. I think that's where real untapped potential lies. And I think even Google released a statement I think about a month ago about really fully integrating phone calls into desktop and allowing that to happen through their Google Chat feature, I guess. But the more integrations that happen, the more that calls are going to become more prevalent and more common. And I think that the users will take to that, and then the advertisers will as well. I don't have any hard numbers on the growth potential, but I know that it's upwards of I can't even remember. I think it's like 60 billion projected mobile searches, just mobile searches by 2015. And maybe Drew can comment on that with the actual stats, but I know that the growth potential is massive, and even just in this last year, we've seen significant growth in pay-per-call, and it's all driven by the more click-to-call integrations and the more seamless that experience becomes, and then the more common it becomes, and the more people just gravitate towards that rather than thinking about what they're doing. It just becomes commonplace. So the more you see it everywhere, and the more it happens, like Twitter has their click-to-call integration now, and so people are starting to use that. And I think Facebook's the big opportunity. As far as affiliate marketing, I think still we should see more email traffic on pay-per-call. So I think there's untapped potential there as well. So unfortunately, I don't have hard statistics, but we see growth happening, and there's exciting things almost every day happening here to take advantage of that and just see that growth occurring.
I have a couple of stats, and Drew probably has these too, because these are from BIA Kelsey. Just looking at the growth of phone call based advertising growing to 73 billion, which is 5x of kind of where it is this year, and I just think ultimately this is all going to be driven by the growth of mobile, mobile devices. I don't know what. I mean, everybody's going to have a desktop computer, but the amount of time spent on desktops versus on mobile devices is going to dramatically and drastically shift as phones become more powerful and more capable. So this is a wave. This is a big wave, which is why we're also excited about it and all kind of investing so heavily in this opportunity, because there's a lot of blind spots when you go back to old school phone calls, and marketers want data. We are all data-driven people, and we love the data we get from web interactions. It's very in-depth, and we can analyze and cut and parse that data in all kinds of ways. And then you go back to this old school phone call, which is being primarily driven by people's what they desire to do on the phone. We can't stop them from doing this. We want them to do this because we know that they're our best opportunities. But I think the growth also presents us with some great challenges, and that is, frankly, providing marketers with the same level of in-depth analytics and the same level of automation, even post-call automation, that they come to expect on the web. I think we've got an opportunity to deliver that sort of technology to people on the phone side of things. And I think we all have a responsibility to do that.
Yeah, okay. Drew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's going to be, obviously, the media opportunity is definitely going towards mobile. I was traveling yesterday reading the Wall Street Journal. People spend 2% of their time in media on newspapers, and they spend most of their time, I can't remember the stat, but it was like 30% on mobile. So it's all the opportunities are going that way. Advertisers are shifting more dollars there. We saw Facebook's all of their new incremental revenue came from mobile. Everything else is flat. So certainly, mobile monetization is happening, and it's big. And desktop search is going to be past at the end of this year or into next year, which is pretty significant. More searches on mobile devices than desktop.
I think that happened this year, Drew. The latest statistics I saw was I think this is the year that we finally did see mobile outstripping desktop.
Yeah, I've seen the projections. I don't know if it's actual reality, but nonetheless, it's massive. It's big. Yeah. Calls are a result of that, and the projections that we've seen in 5 years from now are 80 billion inbound phone calls, and now we're in the 30-ish billion.
Yeah.
So
We're
talking massive numbers that we're not making up. That people that are paid money to do research are figuring out, like BIF, Kelsey, and others. So I think that's the big opportunity for sure. We got to get smarter. There's going to be more data. There's got to be more real time. Pre-call, during call, post-call, all that stuff. It's going to be a bigger mess, right? And you got to be smarter, and integrations are going to be critical. With agencies and with other technologies, CRM, marketing automation, bid management, tag management. The ad tech du jour, I like to say. Whatever it's going to be next, it's got to be integrated. It's got to be plugged in across channel. People touch multiple devices. They're on their phone, they're on their tablet, they're in the car, they're who knows where they are. And marketers need to have huge, gigantic data management platforms. They're going to basically take all this data and make decisions to buy media. You can now buy customers, essentially, programmatically. You don't have to buy specific people that are a bad customer for you. So I think in 5 years it's going to be much more sophisticated. There's going to be a lot more inventory, a lot more calls, certainly a lot of problems, more technologies for everybody. Marketers are spending more money than ever, obviously, on technologies. The CIO is turning a lot of the reins over to the CMO. So there's big things happening, and certainly mobile is again a massive driver here.
Yeah. Okay. Leonidas, what are your thoughts on the future of the industry?
From a publisher's perspective, what Mike said, basically with Facebook integration, that's going to be huge. That's going to be another revenue stream for both publishers as well as advertisers. So I'm looking forward to see how the conversion rates are on those. That's going to be basically from this point on for the next 10, 20 years, we'll see how social media converts. As well, I'm actually looking forward to more geographic regions opening up to advertisers. So right now, a lot of the advertising exists in the United States, and that's where the big money is. But some other markets that opened up were Canada and the UK, but they're still kind of there's those three are just like a fraction of what display advertising has. So we still have, Latin America, we still have Asia, which is like the fastest growing economy in the world right now. If we can monetize those with pay-per-call, then that's where the future is for advertising, for profit generation.
Good point.
Okay. So Drew and Carlton, you both mentioned the need for data. More data. People want to know a lot of details about these calls. Currently, today, what kind of analytics are available? What kind of tracking is available if people are to use your platforms?
Well, for us, our mantra is get more data, get more done, and we are actually all about the data. I think the Invoca platform does a great job with call routing and IVRs and the affiliate management platform piece. They're the leader in that area. Where we're carving out our leadership in this space really is around insight into the phone call. So, collecting all the metrics up front about how the lead got to the phone call, which everybody kind of does this with dynamic number insertion and collecting web-based data. But really, the insight, the additional insight that marketers need is what happens after the phone rings. And so, that's where we're focusing our value proposition, and that's really where we're growing our technologies, is getting as much data about that call as possible in one place, and then letting people consume that data in other platforms as well, whether it's CRM or analytics platforms or marketing automation platforms. So I think that data is the play here, and big data is the play here, and so that's kind of the direction that we're marching in, is getting as much information about the phone call as possible, both pre-call and based on conversation or the things that are being said. And for us, that's been important in the enterprise space and in the advertiser space, which is really where we primarily spend our time and where we sell. And I think at some point, even in the pay-per-call platform, in the pay-per-call network area, insight beyond just the duration of the call is going to be important. And I think that might be why Invoca is introducing their Signal product coming up, and you'll probably want to talk about that a little bit, Drew.
Do you want to talk about that, Drew?
Yeah, talk about a couple things. I mean, it's definitely a great question, and I think this conversation led up to this question, which is, what are the technology companies doing to enable publishers, agencies, and networks, and certainly brands to take advantage of this thing. So certainly our roots are in performance marketing. We get that, and obviously they extend into all kinds of other things that's related to inbound voice calls, and that's why we changed our name to Invoca, inbound voice calls. So it's certainly, there's more to than just pay-per-call in the space, and certainly we all are part of that. So some of the things that are fun for us right now are building out more APIs. People are getting more sophisticated, and certainly RingPartner is very sophisticated in their approach, and we could probably do a separate webinar just on how they're building on top of a lot of things that we've sort of built at the foundation layer to customize the experience for their clients and publishers. So a lot of that is critical. So enabling marketers and agencies and networks the ability to create what they need to create in real time is key. Once that happens, obviously the call is going to go into a call center. So not only do we have to have the tools to support the media, we got to have the tools that say, okay, advertiser, which calls do you want, when do you want them, how do you want them? So we need to communicate with them in real time. So that means doing things like looking in databases in real time, making decisions, not that we've basically built the recipe before the call got there. We need to make the decision in real time. We've talked about local and certainly international. If a call comes in from some DMA or some IP address, in real time, we got to make a decision. Where should this call go? Certainly during the call, we're hearing and seeing and knowing different things. We got to be able to do things maybe in real time to automate the next ad. And then certainly post-call, there's a lot of analytics that happen. We just developed a product that I'm not going to steal the whole show here, but basically we're listening for triggers. We call them signals. If we hear specific signals on the phone, we're going to tell marketers in real time. Again, it's another proxy. Duration is one. Key presses is another. Signals is another proxy. Sometimes you just can't get back information from an advertiser fast enough to start optimizing for the next call. So we've built technologies, again, that support advertisers, brands, networks, publishers, agencies, the ability to say, hey, I don't have 35 minutes or 30 days to get information back from the call center. I got to start buying media and optimizing it tomorrow, today, or right now in the next impression. So I think those are all critical, and all of this stuff has to talk to the other systems that whatever that advertiser happens to have, whether they use the CRM that everyone else uses or whether they use something they built or themselves. It's got to integrate with those systems easily.
Okay. So, Mike, what kind of analytics do you currently give to your customers, and what do you find that they're asking for the most that you can't yet provide but you hope to?
Yeah, I think that on the publisher side, I think what publishers are really looking for as far as deeper analytics is the ability to track keywords, devices, banners, and add those extra parameters to a campaign. And like Carlton had mentioned, people are expecting the same experience they get when they're doing web traffic. And I think that's what publishers really want, and they expect it. And I think that's some of the pushback when publishers look at pay-per-call. They're frustrated by some of the differences, and it is a different medium, and so some of the tracking isn't quite there. I think it's close, but it's not quite there, and so they're frustrated by that. So on the publisher side, they're definitely looking for those types of analytics as far as tracking, because they're used to knowing exactly what worked and what didn't work, and that's how they optimize for success. And so when they come to pay-per-call, some of that is missing, but it's still worth doing, and there are tools that they can use. There's things like a dynamic number insertion to provide their tracking phone number not only on their landing page to track by click, but on the advertiser's landing page, so you can actually replace the phone number. And that's an Invoca feature that allows you to do that. And so we definitely encourage publishers to use that where it's applicable. On Google, it's not the ideal situation for using the advertiser's web page, but for other services. So I think that's what publishers are looking for. As far as what advertisers want, what we're currently giving them is instant feedback, as sort of a venue to report back to us quickly whether the calls are working or not working. We can listen to a lot of the calls, but I think that beyond the duration, tracking is what people really need, and it's not just post-call, but being able to quickly recognize what occurred in that call and what was said. And so being able to tie not just the length of the call, but what was actually discussed into a conversion will only help the performance for the advertisers. And it has to make sense for the publishers as well. But being able to provide a little deeper insight into the calls will definitely help advertisers be more comfortable with it and help performance marketing in general. So I think that just some deeper analytics, and I think there's a lot of work in place right now to help get us to that point where we can track just like any other web traffic or mobile traffic outside of pay-per-call. So it's close, and there's definitely still a huge opportunity regardless of some of the tracking issues.
Okay, so Leo, what kind of analytics are you looking for, and your fellow publishers that you've heard talk?
Well, I'm not on the analytics side. I use the platforms, but generally speaking, the more information for conversion data, the more conversion data I get back, the better. As far as what Mike and Drew said, that's perfect. Basically, use the Invoca platform to generate revenue.
Okay, cool. So we've gone an hour. This has been a great call. Let's wrap it up with some final thoughts and any words of wisdom for the people that are watching who maybe now want to get started in pay-per-call marketing. So we'll start with Mike.
Yeah, I think getting started, definitely reach out to any one of us at RingPartner. I mean, they can contact me. They can just email mike@ringpartner.com or add me on Skype, RingPartner Mike.
Okay. Leo, any advice for the viewers how to get started?
I deal with the pay-per-call information product side, as you said, and basically teaching affiliates how to advertise.
Call us, but
We got Mike back.
All right.
yeah.
Mike, we're losing you a little bit. Okay, so Mike's at ringpartner.com. Sorry, what were you saying about the webinars, Mike?
I was just saying to check out Leonidas's blog as well. Check out his posts. It's a great place to get started. I'm also a member at Stack That Money, which is another good affiliate space forum to check out. Various topics covered. And one of those which is pay per call. But definitely, like I said, reach out to us. Check out a lot of our resources. We're trying to provide as much information as possible. And just give us a call. Go to ringpartner.com, give us a call, and talk to somebody here who can help you get started as either a publisher or an advertiser.
Cool. Okay. So Leo, he just gave you a shout out. So what were you saying before that?
Yeah, I enjoy the shout out. Thank you, Mike. We've been working closely. Basically, like I send him affiliates and basically back and forth. Yeah, it's there's a lot of free guides on premium23.com. Make sure you come and check it out. Tons of free information, and when you're ready to take your publishing skills or your how to make money on a higher level, basically subscribe to the premium posts, and I hope to see you inside.
Awesome. Carlton, final words of wisdom for the viewers?
My only words of wisdom are if you're gonna get into the pay-per-call space as an advertiser, get your act together before you do it.
So you don't spend all kinds of money and then
just don't underestimate the need to systematize what happens after the phone rings, and that that your systems are tied together, and that you have a process for managing and handling the onslaught that's about to happen when you turn this spigot on, because it's an exciting channel, and I hate to see it when you don't think it all the way through and get your systems in place to be able to handle the growth and the exciting leads that you're going to be able to produce from the opportunity. So that's all I would advise.
Okay. And Drew, what about you?
I think all I have is you got to test this stuff. Publisher, advertiser, you got to test. You got to go slow, and it's growing. So definitely think about it. Do your research, but test. That's all I got to say.
Okay, awesome. So this has been a really great call. We've got a lot of varied expertise here on the panel. So I want to thank all you guys for your time and for sharing your expertise with the viewers. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Really appreciate it, and good to meet all you guys.
Likewise. Take care.
Gracias.
Bye.